Hi everyone, today's malicious compliance. Who says we don't need anti-slip pavement? Everyone below you. That's who. Story summary. This takes place in late 2022 in the UK. To avoid issues with NDAs and company policies, I'll keep names and details anonymous. Part 1. The oversight. I worked at a major tourist attraction with thousands of daily visitors. We had recently expanded an outdoor area, installing new brick pavement to blend with the theme, but upper management decided not to install anti-slip treatment. We were in for a dry summer, so they ignored our warnings about winter rain, frost, and ice. Part 2. Malicious compliance. When winter arrived, frost covered the untreated bricks. Slips and falls became frequent, so we filed accident and incident reports for every incident, as required. Filling these reports took 15 to 20 minutes, which kept us out of the cold and in management's office. The stack of reports quickly piled up. Upper management couldn't ignore us, even if they rarely worked on site. Part 3. The solution. Management's answer? Ugly temporary barriers and a few anti-slip mats. But tourists, being tourists, ignored the barriers. Kids crawled under, ending up on the slippery pavement, resulting in even more reports. Management blamed us for not policing the area better, though their half-hearted fix had only made things worse. Part 4. Wake-up call. Then, a 7-year-old slipped, chipping 2 teeth. This triggered serious concern from everyone. Management was in hot water. They had ample warnings and documentation, and now they faced potential liability. Our collective frustration boiled over in that one report co-signed by lower and middle management. Part 5. The fallout. With a possible lawsuit on the horizon, upper management finally treated the pavement. The barriers were removed, slip incidents dropped, and we got tablets to log reports without leaving our posts. Unfortunately, management didn't seem to learn much, but for 3 months, we'd achieved a rare level of teamwork. TLDR. Management ignored warnings and didn't treat new pavement for winter, leading to months of injuries and reports. After a child was hurt, they finally relented and treated the pavement. Hi everyone, today's malicious compliance. Instruction book? Who needs it? Let me show you. No names here. No matter where you work, office, warehouse, or factory, you need to know what you're doing. Last Thursday, my manager decided to mix things up, rotating some of us to different stations. Our workplace has various sections or cells, each with multiple assembly and testing stations. I was initially on Cell 3 assembly, a job I know like the back of my hand. But my manager moved me to the Gebel line, no idea who names these, specifically to the tester's packaging part. My job was to inspect products, scan labels, add an approved sticker, package them, and load them for shipping. Easy, right? It was, until everyone tried to show me their own correct way. As I waited for the trainer, another employee taught me his method. I struggled to keep up, but I thought I was doing okay. Then, the manager stepped in, saying I was doing it wrong and showed me the official way, which slowed me down even more. Things got worse when the supplies lead decided to help, catching me up and showing me her rhythm. Her intentions were good, but I felt like I was being babied, making me visibly frustrated. I'm not proud of the fist clenching or angry faces. Just when I thought I had a workaround, matching color codes, another colleague helped by explaining the colors only applied to certain products. Finally, the person training at the first tester station told them to back off, noticing I was overwhelmed. Eventually, my manager moved me back to Cell 3, laughing that she didn't even know the other guy's method was possible. Afterward, my manager pulled me aside. She mentioned my frustration showed and came off as threatening to others, which I found funny, being a pacifist. She then asked me to follow the instruction book for the correct procedures. I replied that until a recent audit, I didn't even know instruction books existed. They were rarely mentioned. This surprised her, as our instruction book was more like a few laminated sheets on the wall. Later, she admitted that some training steps aren't even followed, something she was aware of. Fast forward to our next break, she assigned someone new to a station next to me, explaining she'd shown him the tasks herself. I couldn't resist smiling and saying, "Oh, so you showed him instead of having him read the instruction book?" She laughed, replying, "Don't you throw that back at me." Hi everyone, today's malicious compliance. Remind me of my work hours? I'll remind you of my work hours. A few years back, I worked as a nurse in Wales under a junior sister who had some unusual management tactics. She would openly pressure a few staff members during handovers, constantly interrupting to tell them to be faster. Eventually, someone pointed out that if she stopped interrupting, they could actually finish more quickly. At that time, I didn't drive and relied on the bus to get to work. One early shift, the bus was late, causing me to arrive 5 minutes past the start of my shift. Junior sister insisted I either take the 5 minutes off my already short 20-minute break or work 5 extra minutes at the end of the shift. When I tried to explain that it was beyond my control, she snapped, Your working hours are from 7:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. with one 20-minute break. I chose to deduct the time from my break since staying late would mean missing my bus home. A few shifts later, I was busy rewriting care plans. All notes were handwritten back then. I'd kept things strictly professional with junior sister, given her attitude. As I sat down to tackle my notes, she offered to help. I thanked her, and she took a stack of care plans to her office. Cue malicious compliance. At exactly 3 p.m., I packed up, grabbed my coat, and made a point of saying goodbye. She looked up, surprised, and asked where I was going. I replied, home. My working hours are from 7:30 till 3. Since I don't get any leeway when my bus is late, I won't be staying past my shift. I'll hand any unfinished work over to the next shift. Then I walked out, leaving her stunned. I didn't get to see her face, but it was absolutely worth sacrificing those 5 minutes of break time for this moment. Boss was reluctant to act on a deadweight coworker, so we made it obvious. We had this coworker on our team. The best way to describe him is with a Homer Simpson quote, "Everyone says they have to work a lot harder when I'm around." Projects given to him were either incomplete, filled with mistakes, or sometimes, just ignored. He'd violate security protocols, give out equipment to other departments, and even disappear for hours. Whenever something went wrong, he always had someone to blame. Contractors, staff from other departments, anyone but himself. But the final straw was when he tried to throw our own team under the bus. Up to that point, we'd all been covering for him, fixing his mistakes just to keep things running smoothly. Admittedly, it's tough to get fired from a state job, but after he tried to pass the blame to us, that was it. So, we decided to stop helping him and stopped covering for his mistakes. If he wasn't making obvious mistakes before, now they were obvious. Mistakes started piling up fast. We kept our contributions to each project clear and complete, leaving his tasks untouched. With everything piling up, he had no one to blame but himself. Then came the final nail in the coffin. He took a week off. Without him around, everything started running more smoothly. Tasks that had been delayed were finally completed on time, and even our boss couldn't ignore how much better things went without him. When he returned, the problems piled up all over again. A couple of weeks ago, we came into work and heard he had left the organization. None of us were surprised. The most amazing part? None of this was coordinated. We all just silently decided enough was enough. It's surprising how much it can take to get someone fired, especially when they're clearly holding everyone else back. But at least our manager here did what was needed. Ironically, with him gone, we're all doing less work because we don't have to redo everything he left incomplete. Following company policy to the letter, thanks for the birthday discounts. I've learned a lot from this sub and finally had a chance to put it into action. Hopefully, this is the right place to share. So, it's my birthday month, and here in France, some stores give little freebies to their loyalty members, like a potted plant at the garden store or a travel-sized perfume at the perfume shop. Others, though, only offer a discount if you make a purchase, which feels odd since a lot of stores usually just hand you a free item with no strings attached. For example, I ordered some wooden advent calendars for my kid to decorate during the upcoming school break. Right after placing the order, I got a birthday email offering €5 off my next purchase if I spent €20. Since I had set the delivery to in-store pickup, I went back, returned, and repurchased the items using the discount. Perfect. Thanks, Reddit, for the idea. Now, onto the real compliance. I have a gift card to a tack store and have had my eye on some items for my horse. When I went in, I saw I had a 20% off coupon, but it was only valid starting next week. I found the items I wanted in my preferred color, but each one was the last in stock. So, I asked the cashier if they would restock or if I could special order in case they sold out before the sale. She said no. Strange, since they often place catalog orders for customers. Then, I asked if they could hold the items or if I could call ahead to check stock. Another no. The cashier seemed set on company policy, so I left it at that and asked about their return policy. 30 days in original condition? Perfect. So, I bought the items, and next week, when my discount becomes valid, I'll return and repurchase them. When the cashier realized my plan, she actually smiled, both of us following the rules, and now she can legitimately restock her location. Ah, the joy of compliance. Hi everyone, today's malicious compliance. Following company policy to the letter, thanks for the birthday discounts. I've learned a lot from this sub and finally had a chance to put it into action. Hopefully, this is the right place to share. So, it's my birthday month, and here in France, some stores give little freebies to their loyalty members, like a potted plant at the garden store or a travel-sized perfume at the perfume shop. Others, though, only offer a discount if you make a purchase, which feels odd since a lot of stores usually just hand you a free item with no strings attached. For example, I ordered some wooden advent calendars for my kid to decorate during the upcoming school break. Right after placing the order, I got a birthday email offering €5 off my next purchase if I spent €20. Since I had set the delivery to in-store pickup, I went back, returned, and repurchased the items using the discount. Perfect. Thanks, Reddit, for the idea. Now, onto the real compliance. I have a gift card to a tack store and have had my eye on some items for my horse. When I went in, I saw I had a 20% off coupon, but it was only valid starting next week. I found the items I wanted in my preferred color, but each one was the last in stock. So, I asked the cashier if they would restock or if I could special order in case they sold out before the sale. She said no. Strange, since they often place catalog orders for customers. Then, I asked if they could hold the items or if I could call ahead to check stock. Another no. The cashier seemed set on company policy, so I left it at that and asked about their return policy. 30 days in original condition? Perfect. So, I bought the items, and next week, when my discount becomes valid, I'll return and repurchase them. When the cashier realized my plan, she actually smiled, both of us following the rules, and now she can legitimately restock her location. Ah, the joy of compliance. Hi everyone, today's malicious compliance. Tell me to call the emergency doctor for a phone order instead of recharting? Okay. I'm a clinical nurse in physical rehabilitation in Australia, and I'll never forget some of the junior doctors I've worked with, especially one resident who was truly awful. One memorable Thursday, I overheard him complaining to the consultant and registrar, saying, "It's boring here. There's nothing to do." Sure, rehab may not be the most high-energy environment, but his comment was just plain rude. Not long after, this same doctor was asked to rechart a PRN, as needed, pain order for a patient suffering from acute gout. The night before, we had already called the emergency department medical registrar, Med Reg, for a phone order since her PRN pain relief order was full, and we don't have an on-call doctor overnight at my campus. Rather than taking a minute to rewrite the order himself, this resident, who claimed to have nothing to do, chose to stick a note on the patient's PRN pain relief order that said, "Just call the ED Med Reg for a phone order if she has pain overnight," as if the ED Med Reg doesn't already have enough work in the actual emergency department. When I came on night duty, I saw the note, and it made my blood boil. But since it was long past his shift, there was no one to ask for a proper order. Naturally, the patient was in pain overnight, so I had no choice but to call the ED Med Reg. It just so happened to be the same doctor I'd spoken to the night before, and understandably, he was confused and slightly annoyed about being called twice for the same issue. When he asked if we'd asked the resident to rechart the order, I told him about the sticky note and even read it to him. There was a brief pause, then a simple, "Right." He gave me the phone order, and I apologized for having to bother him. When I came in the next night, I saw that the resident had actually written a new PRN order. From that point on, we never saw another lazy sticky note like that again, and PRN orders were rewritten in a timely manner. I don't know if he got a talking to, but I'd like to think someone reminded him that rehab patients still deserve proper care. Just because they aren't in ICU or ED doesn't make their health any less important. Hi everyone, today's malicious compliance. You asked me for all my change, so I complied. In the end, I remained the fool. In 2003, I returned home from my first year of college. I'd decided to switch schools and degrees, attending a local music tech college instead. I moved back in with my parents and drove into the city each day for classes. To save on parking, I bought a permit to park in a church lot about 10 blocks from school, giving me a decent walk every day. About a week into classes, I was on my usual walk, smoking a cigarette, when a homeless man suddenly appeared right next to me. He looked exactly how you'd imagine, late 50s, scruffy salt and pepper hair, a flannel jacket, snow pants, and work boots with no laces. He leaned in and asked, "Hey buddy, can I get a smoke?" Now, I was 19 and a bit cocky. I planned to give him one, but he had to earn it. I told him he could have a smoke if he walked with me to class and kept me company. He agreed, so off we went. We exchanged names and small talk as we walked, tossing our cigarette butts a block from my school. Then he leaned in again and asked, "Hey buddy, got any spare change?" I replied, "Sorry, I don't keep change on me." At the time, I tossed all my spare change into some glass milk jugs I had in my room. We parted ways that day, but I kid you not, 2 weeks later, he had memorized my class schedule. Every single day, he'd meet me at the corner, ask for a smoke, and walk me to class, always ending with the same question about spare change. And every day, I'd give the same answer. I didn't have any. This continued for almost 15 months. The school I went to didn't have summer breaks. Finally, it was just a few weeks before graduation. It was the end of winter, and I was getting ready for class. I put on my leather trench coat, grabbed my book bag, and was about to head out when I noticed my 2 glass milk jugs overflowing with change. I looked down at my coat's large pockets, then back at the jugs. I was gonna do it. I turned each milk jug upside down, pouring all that change into my coat pockets. If you've never carried 2 half-gallon jugs worth of coins, let me tell you, it's heavy. I headed off to school, trying to step lightly so the coins wouldn't jingle, and trying not to laugh at the ridiculousness of it all. Things started as usual. He met me at the corner. I handed him a smoke, and we walked. When we reached the end of our walk, we tossed our cigarettes, and he asked, "Hey buddy, got any change?" So I said, "All right, I'll make you a deal. I'll give you all the change I have in my pockets if you promise to never ask me for change again. Deal?" He nodded and held out one hand, palm up. "No, you don't understand," I said. "I have a lot of change." He held out both hands, cupping them together. "No," I repeated. "You don't get it. I have a lot of change." He looked at me, confused, so I grabbed the bottom of his sweatshirt, made him hold it like a hammock, and began shoveling handfuls of coins into it. His eyes widened as more and more change poured in. When he thought I was done, I switched to my other pocket. Coins clinked and echoed between the buildings as both of us laughed uncontrollably. When I finally finished, he thanked me and waddled off, weighted down like a pregnant woman. I headed to class with a huge grin. The next day was sunny, and I walked to school, smiling to myself. Sure enough, he met me at the corner, also smiling. He leaned in with a big grin and asked, "Hey buddy, can I get a smoke?" Long pause. "Yeah, buddy, you can have a smoke." TL. Duck. Homeless man bums cigarettes off me for over a year. In an attempt to get him to stop asking for change, I loaded him up with all of mine. Instead of deterring him, I only reinforced his routine. Edit. Turns out they were half-gallon eggnog jars, not 1-gallon milk jars. Hi everyone, today's malicious compliance. You want me to escalate a claim? Sure. I used to work in the retentions department of an ISP back in the day. While many people called genuinely wanting to cancel their service, just as many knew that retentions wasn't just about cancellations. The ISP, let's call them Red Phone, had 2 different departments. I worked in Retentions 1, where we dealt with fixing bills, offering small discounts, and cheaper phones for customers who wanted to leave. Retentions 2, however, was for customers already in the process of porting their numbers, offering the worst deal of all, a 50% discount for a couple of years and a decent phone for free. This happened roughly 10 or 12 years ago when roaming charges were downright highway robbery. Let me introduce you to the executive. I got the call, did my usual intro, and immediately realized this guy was the most entitled boss I'd ever had the displeasure of speaking with. He told me he was a very important executive who traveled a lot for work, but his bill was ridiculous, and I had to fix it or he was canceling his service. I muted him so he couldn't hear me, but I could still hear him. While I checked his account, I heard him gloat to his girlfriend about how he was going to get the bill credited because he knew how to play the system. And as much as I hated him, he wasn't wrong. This guy was a pro at playing Red Phone. He had the highest phone plan the company offered, which was around €90 at the time for one line, but he only paid €30 a month thanks to discounts stacked from both departments. His plan allowed him to get a very expensive phone for basically nothing at Retentions 2. He had shiny customer status and the special customer service line, usually reserved for customers averaging €300 a month, despite his €30 ARPU. Why? Because he complained about how terrible customer service was and how delocalized it was. He was also right about his bill being ridiculous. He'd traveled to several EU countries and got a €600 bill. He called customer service and claimed he hadn't known roaming would be so expensive. No one had warned him. Red Phone had a policy where, the first time a customer complained about something, we'd refund them, especially if they hadn't been informed about extra charges. So, the rep refunded all his roaming charges, leaving his bill at €30. Comes around. He keeps using the phone overseas and racks up a €1,500 bill. He calls customer service again, but this time they refuse to refund him. He demands to cancel his account and gets transferred that I credit his roaming charges again because, if we'd done it once, we could do it again. He also argued that roaming charges were abusive, which, honestly, he had a point there. I told him I couldn't do that. He demanded that I open a claim and escalate it. I refused again, because there was no way he was getting that credit. He insisted he wouldn't hang up until I escalated it, and if I kept him on the line too long, he'd charge the company for his time since he was a busy man. At this point, I'd been working there long enough that if you were nice or even just normal, I'd try my best to help you. But if you were a dick, sorry, not my problem. This guy had crossed into total Seed-Twaffle territory, and I was pissed off. I couldn't be a dickbag, but I could make sure he learned a lesson. So, I told him, okay, since you're so insistent, I'll open a claim for the €1,500 refund. I muted him again while I opened the claim. The asshole was, once again, gloating to his girlfriend about how clever he was, thinking he'd get his bill refunded again. Meanwhile, I was copying and pasting notes from the previous month's claim. Informed customer of roaming charges in all the countries he said he would be visiting. List of European countries. Oh, and stacking discounts? Not a thing. He'd spammed the Retentions 1 call centers until he got a newbie to apply another discount over the top of his Retentions 2 discount. The customer hadn't read the terms and conditions of his account, but I had. Trying to defraud the company was grounds for termination of service. I got the claim number, flagged it to my supervisor, and asked her to send it to headquarters in the daily report so fraud could review his account. I told the guy that the claim had been opened, but since it was obvious he was trying to abuse the company's policies, the claim had been flagged for fraud review, and his account was likely going to be terminated. His tone went from entitled to worried in 2 seconds, and he asked me to close the claim. Sorry, dude, can't do that, I said. You wanted a claim open. Now it's open. Yes, the customer was fired. Next episode, Boss doesn't understand Outlook. This happened over a decade ago, back when workplace chats were still a novelty. My boss at the time was an old-timer, likely well past his retirement age. No grudge against that. He was very good at most aspects of his job, just a bit set in his ways. Often, I had to arrange meetings with our colleagues in Japan, and my boss would need to be included. For various reasons, he'd get upset if I scheduled these meetings without first checking with him about his availability, even though his calendar showed him as free. He insisted that I check directly with him in his office before scheduling anything. The problem, however, was that he wasn't always at his desk. So, I came up with a solution. I would send him an Outlook meeting invite, just to him, for the time I proposed. This was convenient since I could already see his availability on Outlook. He could accept the invite if the time worked for him, and then I could update the invite with the rest of the attendees later. Well, one day, he saw the invite and hollered for me to come to his office. He was a pretty big, loud guy, so everyone around me heard. He reamed me out for not doing what he'd asked. I'm sure he didn't realize he was the only one on the invite and that he hadn't even declined the meeting on Outlook. I tried to explain, but he insisted that under no circumstances should I book a meeting with him without first talking to him in person. A day or two later, a very important meeting request came through for the afternoon, involving some higher-ups. My boss wasn't around to talk to, as it was later in the day. My manager's second-in-command, who'd witnessed the previous fiasco, pulled me aside and said, "I know what he just yelled at you about, but I think you should just book that meeting anyway." The meeting would be important for him to attend, even though he didn't need to be there. Naturally, I didn't. I quoted my boss's instructions, and the meeting never happened that day. I vaguely remember him losing a few points for missing it, but nothing too dramatic. Moral of the story: sometimes, old-school ways just don't mix with modern technology. Next episode, you want me to answer what you expect to hear. Okay. Back in my days working for a Big 5 consulting company, we were mandated to attend several courses. One of those was called Corporate Image, which was all about looking the part, dressing well, and of course, following the company's strictly suit policy. The idea behind the course was to indoctrinate us into Barney Stinson's school of dressing. Now, I was having a particularly rough day, so let's just say my attitude toward the course wasn't the best, and I chose to sit in the back. The course began with Corpu, the guy in charge, showing a video of a guy wearing flip-flops, a bathing suit, a t-shirt with surfer logos, a badly trimmed beard, and a ponytail, explaining some technical stuff in the most boring way. He was stuttering and seemed to have poor knowledge of the subject. Once the video finished, Corpu asked if we thought this guy was a good communicator and if his message got across. Everyone said no. Then Corpu asked why, and people started saying that his appearance was the problem. Then he turned to me and asked. I replied, because he's boring as a white wall and doesn't know the subject well enough. Corpu then doubled down. Don't you think the way he's dressed has something to do with it? I shot back, if he's good, knows his stuff, and communicates well, we could be fully naked for all I care. Everybody laughs except Corpu. He went into a full 15-minute rant about how dressing the part, wearing a suit, is the most important thing because it makes someone believable and trustworthy and all that corporate babble. I interrupted him once to say, lawyers are among the most untrustworthy people on earth, and they all wear suits. He continued with his rant, saying nobody would trust a lawyer without a suit. I just sat there thinking, okay, fine, I'll play along. Fast forward to later in the course. Corpu shows footage of Steve Jobs and Steve Ballmer talking, engaging with the audience, being good spokespersons, and generally well regarded, all while wearing their typical outfits, which, surprise, were not suits. When the QA session about the Steve's videos started, I raised my hand and said, they don't look trustworthy? 2 of the top 20 richest people in the world, and they wear something I can buy for $40 at any mall? Where are the suits? By this point, Corpu was furious, but I had managed to get most of my colleagues on my side. The discussion turned into a full-blown debate about whether wearing a suit makes someone more trustworthy, and if the brand of suit determines just how trustworthy they are. We started comparing examples, from Pat Riley's Armani suits to Don Corleone's custom-made ones. At this point, Corpu had lost control of the class, and everything came to a head when someone asked, "Wait, are military suits trustworthy or not?" Corpu gasped, realizing where the conversation was headed, and quickly dismissed us with a "Okay, you've all passed this course. I think we'll end it here. See you in the next post."